Well, good morning, Boulevard family. Thanks for braving the cold. We've been wanting cold weather, right? We got it. Hey, how was 2017 for you generally? Good? I would expect you to say that. Most of you probably don't know. Some of you might know. I have a New Year's Day birthday actually, and Kay Huffer found out. How long have we been doing this, Kay? 30 years. Found out about 30 years ago. She found out I like Fig Newtons, and on this day, the Sunday before my birthday, I can count on for the last 30 years. She brings me a thing of Fig Newtons. All right. We'll be talking about her health later. I don't know where that ties in with that, whatever. But anyway, so found that this morning on my desk was Kay's gift of Fig Newtons. Thank you, Kay. You know, I started to begin this sermon with like some happenings, some news stuff from 2017. And then I started looking at it, and honestly, so much of it was negative. And I thought, I don't want to start this sermon off that way. I don't want to start the new year off with that kind of negative stuff. You know, I mean, we want to be real here, or always want to deal in reality. But that's just not the direction I wanted to go. Hopefully, you all had a good 2017. No doubt there's probably some rough moments in it for all of us. But the truth is that we're now about, 13 hours away or something from the new year, and hope that we can bring it in the right God-honoring way. One of the things that Dawn and I wanted to do this last year, you probably heard me say before, she likes to kind of get rid of things, but things still gather. And so one of our goals was to go through the attic and take out a bunch of stuff that that had been up there for years. And then she has gone through the closet systematically. I think we moved into our house in December of 2000. So we've been there 17 years, and things build up, don't they? I mean, does that happen in your house? That things build up? And so she went through it, and there's always a lot more, and you wonder why you're keeping what you're keeping. And I've realized that although we don't keep a lot of stuff, that we are natural gatherers, aren't we? I mean, we all struggle with that. And I was reminded of that as I was going through the kitchen the other day, and I came upon this little device. I hope it was not a gift from any of you. Still at my house, somewhere in the shelves, back behind everything else. It's a quick, teeny hamburger maker. Everybody needs one. And we have with it somewhere in the shelves, we have a quick, teeny waffle maker. So if you make like one teeny waffle, you're going to have to make about 7 more for just one meal, all right? And I was looking at this thing, and honestly, I mean, if you open it up, it's like it'd have to be like an 1/8 of an inch hamburger to even fit in there. If you put anything more, it's going to squish it. But you know what? It's in our kitchen if you need it, all right? And it will probably remain there for the next 5 to 10, all right? That's the kind of stuff that we keep. You know, it's just amazing what comes our way that we put in a corner in the attic, in the closet, on the shelves, whatever it is. But along the way, we gather other stuff, don't we? I mean, not like teeny hamburger makers, not just books, not just stuff we really don't need. We also gather along the way, kind of like Velcro as we live our lives. In the course of the year, we'll begin to gather other stuff to us. Some of it is good stuff. Some of it is bad stuff. And I want to talk about some of those things just a little bit today with the idea of this, real simply, okay? What have you and I, what have we picked up in the last year, maybe 2 or so, that we want to take into the new year? What would be beneficial to us? What's healthy? What has meant growth for us? And then what are some things that we might have picked up, maybe of our own choosing, maybe some things that we didn't have any control of, but have somehow become a part of our life that we need to jettison, that we need to quickly prune, that we need to make sure that somehow in the next 13 hours that we make some kind of an action plan to get rid of this stuff so it finds its way out on the curb of our life and not closer to our heart. A guy by the name of Matt Chandler. Matt Chandler is the pastor of the Village Church down in Dallas, and he's an excellent young preacher, preaches the word, has some great podcasts out there. I would very highly recommend you pulling that up and listening to some things he says. And Matt Chandler was speaking at a conference we went to several months ago, and Chandler said this. He said in the life as we learn to abide with Christ, that there are moments in our life. Obviously, we have chaotic moments. We have chaotic moments as we deal with our kids, right? We have chaotic moments as we deal with our spouses. We have chaotic moments as we deal with our ex-spouses, with co-workers, with all kinds of things in our finances. We have those moments. There are times, he says, that we can pull aside and in the transition moment kind of recenter ourselves. And I thought that's really good. Understanding that that it's not always going to be like this. Sometimes it's just going to be like this. And then there are going to be moments that we have to grab. And I was beginning to think about that. And I thought, you know what? This is, from one year to another, seems to me to be a moment that we might be able to stop and kind of examine the last 365 or so and think through, okay, what needs to be taken? What needs to be left behind? So what I want to do really in the next few minutes, I just want to take 5 things, right? Could have made a list of 10 or 12 or 20, but just 5 things that I wrote down that I feel like probably you and I at some point in time have struggled with most of these. Maybe like Velcro, somehow they've attached themselves to us by our own choosing or otherwise. And I want to just look at, okay, what are we going to do with those? Are we going to take those things with us, or are we going to leave them behind? Are you ready for this? Number one is this: the beginning of a bad habit. The beginning of a bad habit. Now, you might wonder, like, why do you say a beginning, Steve? Well, here's why, okay? It's intentional. Because would you agree with me that at the beginning of a bad habit, or any habit, we usually don't realize it's a habit, right? It's just something we've done once or twice, or maybe 3 or 4 times. We also don't realize at the beginning of a bad habit, you and I, we don't realize that it's a bad habit. As a matter of fact, it may seem absolutely harmless. It may seem even healthy. A number of years ago, I got in a thing where, I was walking through the house. Dawn had this, I probably began it holiday time, all right? Dawn had this cute little bowl of M&Ms. Beautiful little things, aren't they? Not bags, just individual M&Ms. And I was trying to think healthy. I thought, well, I'm not going to grab a handful of M&Ms. I don't want a bag of M&Ms. That would be an unhealthy thing to do. I'll just take a few M&Ms. And I would take a few M&Ms every time I walked by the M&M bowl. I would take 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 M&Ms times 5, times 10, 20 trips times past the M&M bowl I would go. Taking a few M&Ms, feeling pretty doggone good about myself because I wasn't eating at one time a bag of M&Ms. 10 pounds later, I began to recognize that I was past the beginning of a bad habit. I was full-fledged in the middle of a bad habit. And it wasn't any healthy to it whatsoever. And that, my friends, is exactly how a bad habit starts, all right? Healthy at the front end, even thought I was doing the cool thing. I'll just take a few. All of a sudden, I'm deep into something that doesn't have any health or redeeming value to it whatsoever. Sometimes those things start very innocently and are invited into our life and then can become an embarrassment, then inappropriate to absolutely unwelcome. Let me ask you this question. Has anybody here ever asked for, dear God, would you please give me a life-controlling, marriage-destroying, money-sucking habit? I mean, really? I mean, is it when we would do it for the first time? When the first time I went by the M&M bowl, I was like, oh man, I hope I get 10 pounds on after this one. Come on, baby. We don't do that. We don't think about that. Nobody wants that at the end. I mean, that's not what we're thinking about. Nobody thinks about the first couple times we engage ourselves in that. Man, I hope this takes all the money out of my bank account. Boy, I hope this ruins some of my best relationships. But that's exactly what we're getting into. A man by the name of Augustine said this: the enemy held my will. He made a chain out of it, and he bound me to it. He did what? My will. That's supposed to be a good thing. He held my will, he made a chain out of it, and he bound me to it. From a perverse will came lust. I remind you that lust is often not a sexual thing. It's just anything that we desire for our own pleasure, okay? And it can even be good things that we can lust for all the wrong reasons. From a perverse will came lust and slavery. Lust became a habit, and the habit, being constantly yielded to, became a necessity. That's the life and the effect of a habit. And so maybe this year, so maybe this last year, maybe you've been prone to anger like never before. Maybe you are impatient. Maybe you're yelling. Maybe you're raising your voice a little bit more than you used to. Maybe your vocabulary has picked up a few new words that you weren't using in 2015, 2016. Maybe you're spending some money that's really not there to spend, or maybe you're having a drink before bedtime more regularly than ever before. Maybe you're sleeping in at a time when you really ought to be getting up. And maybe the portions of your plate are getting bigger and bigger, and you're going back a second or third time. I don't know what the beginning of your bad habit is. I just know my dad told me one time, he said, Steve, nobody ever took their first drink thinking they would become an alcoholic. And that, my friends, is true. That's the beginning of a bad habit. So what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that bad habit? Well, the answer is, obviously, we're going to leave it, right? We're going to leave it. And when there ought to be dust flying, and there ought to be wheels squealing. Hey, listen, don't flirt with it. Don't flirt with it. Don't court it. Don't give it a cute name. If you hear yourself saying, well, it's just those are two words that should tell you automatically, this is not taking you in the direction that you need to go. Nip it in the bud. Leave it in the dust. Get away from it as quickly as you possibly can. Listen to what the writer of Hebrews says in Hebrews 12:1. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off. That's a powerful visual image, isn't it? Not just drop, throw it off. Everything that hinders, the sin that so easily entangles. Why does it so easily entangle? Because at the beginning, sin always seems harmless. Sometimes even healthy. That's why it so easily entangles. And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Throw it off. Why? Throw it off so you and I, as followers of Jesus Christ, can follow him on the course that God has for us. So here's one thing I want you to do. You can do it now, you can do it later. I want you to write down the beginning of one bad habit that you started in this last year, in the last 365 days. The beginning, write down one thing. Second thing, beginning is, the first one is the beginning of a bad habit. Number two is this, it's a painful experience. A painful experience. What are we going to do with that? Something has happened to you this year that is painful. It is either maybe because you started the fight, maybe something happened to you. It could be a number of things. Are we going to take that painful experience, or are we going to leave it behind? Are we going to leave it, cut it, and leave it behind? The truth is that several of you have experienced incredibly deep loss in some ways. The loss of a family member, the loss of a friend, the loss of money, possibly. You've experienced betrayal. Some of you experienced divorce in the last couple years, and it still stings. It hurts you to the bottom of your heels. Some of you have had health problems that you never expected, and they just linger. And it's affected your life, and it's affected your attitude, and it's affected your hope, the loss. I had a young lady I met with a number of years ago whose parents had been divorced for years, decades. And I would tell you, I realized after a couple times I met with her, I could say this word, I could say the word divorce, and the tears would begin to roll. I could say the word divorce, and tears came every time. Because she had not taken the time to take that pain and really allow God to work through it and process it. See, really, it's about bringing that painful experience out of the darkness into the light. I read recently that the Bible isn't concerned about when something happened, whether it was today or 10 years ago. The Bible is interested in whether we have denied the problem and pushed it into the darkness because we don't want to deal with it. Why? Because it's painful. We don't want to think about that anymore. We've pushed it into the darkness, or whether we have exposed it to the light and dealt with it in God's way. And one of the first things God's do is he's going to show us what it is, the reality of it, and he's going to show us the effect it is having in our life. And honestly, most of us folks don't want to deal with that pain. So we put it back in the darkness. Dr. Henry Cloud wrote this incredible book. Incredible book. Would be a good book to begin the new year with. 12 Christian beliefs that can drive you crazy. Very good stuff. Here, Dr. Cloud says this: grieving is a conscious process. That means we choose it. A conscious process by which we deliberately, again choosing, release our attachment to persons, to goals, to wishes, and or religious systems that we can no longer have. Grieving has to be intentional, regardless of whether we have lost a person, a religious system, something in our life, whatever that might be, a goal. So the question is, what are we going to do with that? What are we going to do with this painful experience? Well, no, maybe it's not as cut and dried as the bad habit, is it? The truth is that there's some things that we're going to take with us because we can learn from those. There's some things that we have to jettison because they're going to pull us down and entangle us. One of the first things we can bring is what we can learn about God. That's something we need to take into the new year. What can we learn about God from this? Listen to what the writer of Psalms says in Psalm 119, which is primarily about the effect of God's word in our life. He says in Psalm 119, before I was afflicted, there's your painful experience, I went astray, but now I obey your word. It was good for me to be afflicted so I might learn your decrees. Wow, that's interesting. That's probably something we never thought about. A few verses down later, he says, I know, Lord, that your laws are righteous and that in faithfulness you have afflicted me. The affliction actually sometimes comes directly from God. May your unfailing love be my comfort. So God may afflict us, may actually cause some kind of painful experience to happen. Why? So that we can lean into, so that we can become more aware of, so that his unfailing love can become real to us. Had a conversation with a young lady not very, very long ago. Had this conversation with a lot of people. I love to ask the question, when did your faith become real to you? It's a great question. Think about that. When did you get off your parents' coattails? You were taking to church every Sunday night, every Wednesday night. When did it become real to you? The answer is almost always the same. They think, they pause, reflect, and they say, well, I guess during some of the most difficult moments in my life. And then they share what some of those were. Faith becomes real. Our relationship becomes real with God most often during those times of being afflicted. And yet we most naturally run from them, put them in the dark, and try to distance ourselves from that very pain that God may have actually placed there, or at least want us to learn something about him in that moment. Something else we can learn from this and take into the new year is that we can learn empathy for those who are hurting around us. We can learn to be better encouragers because now we have a story and we really do kind of get what that person is going through. And there's an incredible healing in pain when I am struggling with something and you come to me and go, hey, you know what? I was struggling with that. Follow me. Let me take you by the hand and let's walk through this together. That's incredibly healing, incredibly strengthening. Had a couple in our church come to me about a month ago. She sent me a text and said, hey, we had this experience about 10 years ago, and we really feel like some young couples might be able to benefit. We would like to tell our story, so we're working on how to get them to be able to tell their story. And it's a good story. Great things to be learned. They learned a lot about God through that time. That's what happens. So here's the question for you. What is one thing that has happened in the past? It doesn't have to be this last year, okay? But you can start there. What's one thing that has happened in the past that I need to allow God to touch and bring into the light, out of the darkness into the light? What does God want me to learn about him from this? Think about that. Let's quit running away. Let's quit running away from those things, all right? And pretending that everything's okay, because those things will eat us up in our lives. There's all kinds of effects that those things left in the dark will have in our life. The beginning of a bad habit, a bad experience, or painful experience. Number 3. Everybody ready? You just think you are. Everybody just sit and take a deep breath for me really quick. You ready? Number 3, a few extra pounds. First he shows a beer commercial. Now we're going to talk about my weight. Oh, yeah, well. Okay, so if this makes you mad, okay, and you want to email me to my account that's under my middle name, james@bccok. Just a joke. Just a joke. I almost didn't do this one. I almost pulled this from the ranks pretty early on, okay? But I thought to myself, no, you know what? We deal in reality in this family. We deal in reality. And the reality is that most of us are thinking about the extra weight that we put on, that we're not as healthy as we want to be. We would like things to be different. That's what we're thinking about. So let's just talk about it. Because here's the other reality. Do you know that January, not surprised by this, I'm sure, that in January there are more gym memberships started than any other month? Do you know that in the average, that when we start a gym membership, that 80% of gym memberships will be quit, okay? They'll be stopped after 5 months. What does that tell you? You know that most people who diet, the average diet lasts 5 weeks. Okay? Amazing, isn't it? You know what that tells me? That tells me that we're all thinking about it and we want to do something about it, but what we're doing does not work. And you know what that is? That's the definition of insanity. We're all doing the same thing pretty much, and it's not working, and next year we'll keep doing the same thing. I'm going to diet. Let me just share something about diets. Diets is a weird deal, because diet says this: I am engaged in bad behavior. I'm going to stop that bad behavior for just a little while until I get feeling better about myself so I can re-engage in bad behavior. I'm the only one laughing. Come on, Tim, I need your help on this one. Okay? You know, think about that. If we took that philosophy or that plan to anything else in our life that we were doing like was unhealthy, I'm going to stop this for 4 or 5 weeks till I get feeling a little bit better so I can jump back into this bad behavior. I was like, that's stupid. That really is insanity. And yet we consistently do it. I'm going to stop this. This is where this has got me. It's got me to this. I don't feel good. I'm unhealthy. I'm out of control. I'm going to stop this for a few weeks. And then with the plan that now I can go back to what I was doing before, which I think will take you right back to where you are now. But hey, isn't that crazy? So let's just talk about this for just a second, okay? I just wanted to give you a plan. Okay, I mean, I'm no fitness expert whatsoever, but I think a plan might be helpful. First of all, let's do this. Let's call this what it is. We have an area of life, you and me, that is completely out of control. If it wasn't out of control, it wouldn't be a problem. We wouldn't be thinking about it. We wouldn't be making New Year's resolutions. We're out of control. We've tried to quit. We've tried to cut down. We've tried to work out, and we don't hang with it. We got an out of control problem. So let's call it what it is. It's an out-of-control sin problem, because you and I, in some way, are doing something where we ought to be leaning into God for comfort. We ought to be concerned about living a healthy life for God. Instead, we're out of control in this area, and we're leaning into food when we're angry, and we're leaning into food when we're frustrated. We're leaning into food, and I'm going to tell you. I mean, I've said this before from up here. I have a consistent problem with food. I have a consistent problem with food. I learned to eat for comfort when I was young, and I still do that. And it doesn't matter about weight. It doesn't even matter how much I work out. It doesn't matter, okay? It's not that. This is a thing of the heart. We have to understand that. Don't try to make, well, I'm not overweight. I'm not talking about overweight necessarily. I'm talking about, do you have a problem that is keeping you unhealthy, where you are trusting something other than God when it comes to anxiety and hurt and anger? That's what we're talking about. So let's call that what it is. And here's the deal. If we call it what it is, friends, then we can confess it. And we can bring it to God, and we can surrender it. And folks, good things happen when that happens, because now it's just not me fighting this uncontrollable monster. Now I've involved the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. He's on my side. I'm operating out of his strength, all right? And now the game's changed. Listen to what Galatians 5:22 and 23 says. But the fruit of the Spirit is love and joy and peace and forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And self-control is not me controlling self. It's allowing the Holy Spirit to control me. And that's very, very different than what we try to do. It's the fruit of the Holy Spirit, this self-control. Let's call it what it is. We got a problem, right? Okay? We got a problem. We're all friends here. Number 2, let's do a doable and repeatable activity. A doable and repeatable activity. Talked to a friend of mine who has his master's in health and fitness. I said, what's the number one problem? He said, here's really the number one problem. People get excited about this time of year, about doing something. They're going to start working out. So what do? They go to the gym and they kill themselves at the gym. Or do they go to the track, or what do they do? And they overdo it. So what happens on day 2? They're so tired and so sore that they can't even think about working out. Day 3, they're so overwhelmed with it, and they already feel bad because they didn't on day 2. So they've experienced failure. They're still tired. They don't want to. There's nothing enticing about going back and doing what they did on Monday. So essentially, it's over. May last a little longer than that. I said, what would you tell them to do? He said, do something that's doable. Find a time in your day when you can repeat this. In the morning or in the evening when you got some time, take 15 minutes and walk. 15 minutes and walk. Maybe after a week, walk a couple more minutes. One of the things I would encourage you to do, maybe after a week or two, after you're done walking walk for 4 or 5 minutes and then jog or something. I mean, just a little bit faster pace for 15 seconds and then go back to a walk. Get your heart rate up. Keep doing that. Build it up. Do something that is doable and repeatable. Number 3, okay? Take your plate, make half of it fruits and veggies. Not fried okra. That doesn't count. Okay? I mean, I'm just talking practical stuff, all right? Make one plate. This is something I've really struggled with. We had spaghetti Friday night, okay? I may have been there 3 times. I told you, I got a problem, okay? I mean, I knew going in, it's like, okay, when you're talking about pasta, this is going to be a tough one for me, all right? Okay? Do snacks right. Okay? Do snacks. Or snacks, yeah. Do the right snacks. Do them in the middle of the morning. Do them in the middle of the afternoon. All right? And you'll find yourself not as hungry and thinking that you're starving at mealtime. You'll be more apt not to eat as much. And it works. It works. All right? Number 4, focus on your health. Focus on your health and not on your weight. And then celebrate some victories. If you get a little victory, all right? Man, celebrate that. Celebrate that. Yeah, man, I did great. Call somebody. Say, hey, I'm working on this. Allow yourself to feel good about that so you're encouraged to go on. Call it what it is. Doable, repeatable activity. Watch what's on your plate. Focus on your health. Okay? Nothing's foolproof, but when you invite God to be a part of that and call it what it is, it's a pretty good start. Okay? Next thing, a good friendship. A good friendship. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. This is pretty easy. What's a good friendship? Well, it's, somebody you've met or grown your relationship and you're going, man, this is enjoyable. I like this. First of all, make sure that it's somebody, if it's not your spouse, that is of the same gender, because it's not, it's wrong. Okay, is that clear enough? If you develop a friendship with someone that's not your spouse and they're another gender, the other gender, then that's automatically wrong. And you need to cut that off and nip it in the bud. All right? Let's make that clear. I was thinking about some good friendships of mine. A couple of things that they do. One, they challenge me to be a better person. That's easy, right? By being with them, by their example, by the things that they say to me, they challenge me to be a better person. That's a trait of a good friendship. They refresh us, right? When you're around good friends, by their honesty and and laughter about the right things, there's a refreshment that comes. We feel filled up when we step away from them. And third, my good friends encourage me. And they listen to me. I mean, they're good listeners. When I got some stuff I really need to throw up and we go back and forth, hopefully I'm a good listener for them. And then sometimes, can I say this I might as well, I'm on the edge. Sometimes they would come to my front door and just about kick my butt if they knew that I was engaging in something that I shouldn't be engaging in. Proverbs 27 says a little bit different. The wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. And Proverbs 18:24 says, one who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin. But there's a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Unreliable friends are good friends. And if you're still looking, if you're out there like, gosh, I just kind of feel lonely, I'd love to have a good friend. I don't want to be trite about this. I'll just say this. Be in the right kind of place. Go to the right kind of places for the right kind of friends. Be the kind of person that people are going to want to be friends with. Don't be a blood-sucking leech. Is that clear enough? If first time you meet and have coffee, if you just throw up emotionally all over them, that may be your last cup of coffee too. All right? And right timing. Timing takes a long time. For guys especially, it takes a long time to develop that friendship. I was talking to my dad the other day, and he was making a list. He's 85, and he's making a list of his honorary pallbearers. In his funeral, he said, Steve, I have Jesus, and I have my family, and my friend's the most important thing next to me in my life, next to those two. And this is no kidding. His honorary pallbearers, he's told me who they were one time, and there's like 25 to 30. I mean, this is a man who spent his life making friends, and he counts them a value. It's, I'm not going to say his funeral's going to be fun, but it will be interesting with all those pallbearers trying to get one hand on the casket, I guess, Interesting. Last one is this, unwanted debt. Unwanted debt. But we're just talking about all kinds of fun stuff, aren't we? Everybody in shock at this moment. Again, you know what? I think we're thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. I want to do some things in 2018. I was not content with some things that we did in 2017. We had some money disappearing. It wasn't disappearing, it was because I wasn't taking good care of it and wasn't watching it. And 2018, I want to be different. I want to be a better steward. Do you have that desire too? And so let's just talk about it again. Let's call it a reality. That was out of control in my life, and I'm trying to get control of it by myself, and it's not working. So what are we going to do? I'm just going to say this. Get it. Get it. One, get God involved in this thing, just like we do with our weight. Invite him in and say, you show me, bring your element of control by the Holy Spirit into my life, and then you begin to show me where I am acting unwisely. And show me where it's your money. You show us where it goes. Get God involved. Number two, get helped. Get help. Ask a friend. Say, hey, I got some problems. Would you ask me once a week or once a month how I'm doing on this? Pull up a Dave Ramsey video. Dave Ramsey's got some great, great teaching on it. You can find it on our Right Now media site that we have that you have full access to, all right? And here's a very practical thing, very practical deal. Dave Ramsey has this thing called the snowball principle. The snowball principle is real simple. Let's say you have three debts. One is $1,000, one is $2,000, one is $3,000. Don't we wish, all right? So you have payments every month on those three things. The snowball principle says this. You take the first debt, the smallest debt, you gather up as much money. Maybe you got an end of the year bonus or something. You gather as much money as stuff. You have a garage sale. You sell whatever you got to sell, and you take that and you apply it to the smallest debt plus your payment. You apply that. Anytime you get a little extra, you apply it. When you get that first payment done, guess what? You still are gathering whatever you can. You're gathering the bonus, the birthday gift. Then you're taking your first payment and applying that to the second thing as well as the second payment, the payment to that, all right? So now you got two payments going on, number two. plus all some other things, okay? You get that paid off, you take payments 1 and 2 and apply that to the third one. And listen, folks, it works. I'm just going to tell you, it works. It's doable. And I remember watching my card that I had my stuff and marking some of those debts off that had owned me for years. Proverbs 22:7 says, the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. I don't want to be a slave. I don't want to be a slave to anybody except the Lord Jesus Christ. I don't want to owe anybody money. I want to take the money that God has given me as steward and be able to put it back into the kingdom and the things that are important to Him. I don't want to owe somebody. So I'm going to do whatever I can as quick as I can, as effectively as I can, to get out of that debt so I can be free and live with that sense of freedom in my life. So, taking it or leaving it. We taking it or leaving it in those 5 areas, and there are more. You might have to make your own list of some things that have grabbed onto you in the last year or so. But these are some things, again, that I thought we all struggle with. You know, we gather stuff, and some of that stuff goes to our attic, and when we find it, it's annoying. And some of that stuff goes to our closet, and when we open up the closet, we're going, why do we even still have that? And some of it goes to our shelves and our kitchen cabinets, and when we find it, and it's like, I can't believe we're still holding on to that. And that's annoying, and it's frustrating. But these things, they're not in our attics. And they're not on the shelves. They're not in the cabinets, folks. These have found a place in your heart and my heart. And when I read 2 Chronicles, I read about the kings, and the kings, the standard that God had for the kings, the way He primarily judged their effectiveness in His eyes was whether their whole heart was devoted to Him or whether they had given room in their heart to other things that they had collected the year before because of pride and power and whatever else, okay? And that's how those things come to our heart. They stick, and they take a part of our heart. They steal joy from us. They keep us off the course that God has for you and I in the year 2018 unless we invite God in, until we quit flirting with them, quit calling them cute names, quit making jokes about them with friends, quit calling it just that we jettison those things, that we nip those things in the bud with the help of the Holy Spirit. You are not only an individual. Let me remind you that you are a member of the body of Jesus Christ. And as this body, we have a vision, a mission to reach this community, the unchurched. And I'm just telling you that when I keep these things as part of my heart, it makes me ineffective as a person who can help this church meet that mission. And when you keep those things in your life and in your heart, it hinders us from the course that God wants us to take as a church and as you as well as an individual. Let's not play with this stuff. Let's not flirt with it. Let's not laugh about it. Let's not call it a cute name. Let's jettison. Let's prune. Let's cut. Let's do the drastic thing to drop these things that need to be dropped and take the things that need to be taken. So as a person, as a follower of Jesus Christ, and as a church, a family of God, we can be on the course in this next year that God has for us.